Hey everybody, welcome to the BC Libertarian Party debate.
Just wait, not yet. You might have to click that go live thing on that Zoom there.
Got it.
And yeah, now we're live. Yeah, for sure.
Okay. Hey everybody, sorry we're late, technical difficulties. Welcome to the BC Libertarian debate series. I'm Andrew Coombs. Today we have Mirage and Alex, and they are going to be the two debaters. The resolution is the primary goal of the BC Libertarian Party is to educate the masses in the libertarian principles and shift the culture. And today's debate style will be the Lincoln Douglas style of debating. So I will set my alarm. Hopefully these guys don't go on for 20 minutes and I don't have to be the big bad mean moderator and everybody will play by the rules. But yeah, so we will begin with Alex as he is speaker B and he is the one trying to speaker A, sorry, and he is the one trying to put forward that this is what our party should be doing. Mirage will be speaker B and he will get the first rebuttal. So Alex is up first, giving him 6 minutes, starting now.
All right, let's see how fast I can go through this without just reading off my page. I've gotten the advice that one should never open a speech with a joke because if it bombs, then you've lost the room. But since I can't see the audience, I'm gonna try it anyway. So what's the difference between a libertarian wedding and a libertarian funeral? One less opinion in the room. So it is well known that we in the libertarian circles, we struggle with infighting just as much as any other political movement. But it's important that our party's end goal be the same, that we want liberty to grow and British Columbians to be more free. So during the ramp up to the recent protests in Ottawa, our Prime Minister called the protesters a fringe group. Well, Canadian libertarians, we are the original fringe group. We are so small in numbers for many reasons. The majority of Canadians don't even know what a libertarian is. And most Canadians are not interested in self-responsibility or small government, but they often inadvertently encourage the size of the state to grow. They don't even realize that in likelihood, every situation is best with less government. This is a matter of advocacy. So we need to be better educators. So the primary goal of the BC Libertarian Party needs to be to educate the masses in libertarian principles and shift culture. So this past year, we saw a changing of the guard with the National Libertarian Party. Tim Moen stepped aside as the federal party leader. But in his outgoing speech, he touched on a number of issues, and I hope to emulate some of those that are relevant to our provincial party. He brought up a former liberty activist, David Nolan. He had a summary of 4 kinds of libertarians. They're the retreaters, you know, the people that want to live off the grid, want to just delete themselves from public life in every way they can. They have snipers, which he explained is people that don't necessarily share all libertarian views, but they really focus all their efforts on one particular topic, you know, whether it be healthcare or taxation, and they try and get a positive resolution there. And then there's the infiltrators. They are perhaps the most dominant group amongst libertarians. They tried to participate in the system, join the major parties like the Conservative Party of Canada, or more relevant to us, the BC Liberals. By being in some of these more established political parties, they might get to be in a position where they can influence power, maybe. But to make inroads, the infiltrator would need to concede on many issues, and for someone who is deeply principled, they wouldn't be able to make those trade-offs. Still, the infiltrators perhaps have the best chance of getting elected or getting a candidate sympathetic to small government actually elected. But this is not going to bring about the change necessary. In that outgoing speech that he named The Audacity of Hopelessness, I love the title, he gave the example that even if somebody were to get elected to a town council or as a mayor, there's very little that he could do other than, you know, perhaps change the garbage pickup schedule or, you know, the contract for, you know, pest control. Even a school trustee, in reality. I mean, although you can, from the inside, influence policy change, you really can't change a lot because a lot of it's dictated from the ministry. Another great quote he had, there is a political demand for the lizard people, and culture demands it. This is where we continuously have, this is why we have elected officials increasing the size of state overreach. And not only is there no pushback from the public, but they reward the actions with thunderous applause. So until we change culture, we won't actually see a reality where libertarians can change policy. This is where the educators factor in. We, the educators, and I'm speaking for myself and anyone else who would like to take that designation, we're not able to directly affect legislation or make anyone more free instantaneously. But the educators are trying to build a movement that would see all Canadians and all British Columbians become more free. So there are many ways we can preach to the masses. We can host public-facing events, such as our Comedy Unmasked event, you know, puts our brand forward, and also it's something that everyone can enjoy. We have our outreach team pushing for letters to the editor writing campaigns, which is a very low, no-cost way to get an issue to newspaper readers that perhaps they've never seen. We've done social media marketing, but in reality, we haven't done the best job at that, so there's room for improvement. Traditional marketing, like targeted mailouts or billboards, like these are all ways that we can improve. So winning elections should not be the ultimate goal, but merely fielding a candidate actually is a very good way to introduce non-government solutions to people that have not heard them, because you know, you get to an all candidates meeting, you get some newspaper coverage, and it puts us on the same footing as a lot of other candidates and established parties. But even if we were able to pool all our Liberty resources and get one or two candidates elected, even if, what are they going to do? Their influence will be restricted. Private member bills often fail. They'll be in no caucuses. They'll have no ability to influence actual government policy. So yes, they would have a veritable soapbox to preach to, but this would to accomplish that goal, getting somebody elected would take massive amounts of resources without much gain. So if we make electing a candidate our number one priority, I fear we may misappropriate what limited resources we have. So we can't do both, and if we try, we'll fail miserably, is my opinion. So Andrew Breitbart, of course, famously said politics is downstream from culture. So I reiterate, we must instead focus on creating more libertarians, changing the culture of our province. Thank you very much.
Okay.
We're outlined on that.
6:26.
Oh, okay. You got
So Mirage gets 3 minutes to cross-examine what he just heard. Okay, starting now.
Okay, well, I mean, I'm going to repeat throughout this debate a theme which is really important, and that's really about how are you going to change anything if you don't have power? We have had numerous libertarian opportunities throughout the world, whether it's US or Canada, and without having power, little stuff gets done. I mean, this is a definition of insanity. You keep putting the same inputs, you have an output that's undesirable. So you talk about focusing on the culture and not devoting resources to even get a candidate elected. Please tell me, Alex, how exactly do you intend to create change without power?
I would suggest that that being in a position of power doesn't necessarily give you the ability to enact change, because we saw many jurisdictions Canada-wide, many provinces tried to come out with a new policy for COVID mitigation efforts, and they got pushback from their populace, either one way or the other. Like, for example, in BC, people are clamoring for more mandates, whereas in other province, perhaps like Alberta, they're pushing back for less mandates. So when it comes down to it, who you have in government and who you have there in a position of power is not going to dictate what the people want. So what we need to do is we need to change what the people want. And I feel that they don't know what they want because they haven't heard our message properly.
Okay, I understand, but the reality is, I mean, I've run through 2 elections, federal and provincial. I didn't get the even the opportunity of the forum to speak to anyone. As smaller parties, without having any power going into legislature, whether you're in House of Commons or in Victoria, you're not going to get that voice. And we've been doing this. I've been at this for several years. All this cultural change that you and I both want, it's not going to happen without getting power. You talk also about infiltrators. I mean, Donald Trump is a great example. I look at him as an infiltrator. He came in, hijacked the Republican Party, got in. He created change, in my opinion. It's not the kind of change Canadians like, but things like that happen. Now, I'm going to suggest when I get into my own rebuttal about solutions that we can use in order to come in and create the kind of country we want. But it's going to maybe require unorthodox approaches. And I just have a problem with the fact that you're basically suggesting, let's take an approach that's been done for years, maybe decades, and it hasn't really resulted in anything. And I have several case studies where people have done what I feel is my approach, which has been effective. So my last thing is, you talked about branding and the name and education and all that stuff. I mean, why are we so stuck on the branding? I mean, we've already had a debate about the name Libertarian Party. We don't have to use that name. We can go in on any other name. We can hijack a party if we want to. I mean, it's been done. So why do we have to be worried about something like that?
Short answer, because it is our name. It's why a lot of people sign up for the party. It is our principles, and that's why I'm here. Personally, me. I won't speak for everyone.
I'll speak again from experience. I've run as candidates. People confuse us with liberals. Unfortunately, the term liberal has been hijacked. We're classical liberals.
Right, of course.
It's actually a real problem. It's a separate issue. But you know what? If we have to go and change our name just to get in there and get the power and enact the change, which I think you want, and I'll get to that soon, okay, I'm all for it.
All right.
That's it.
Great.
So now you're on to, what is he on to?
Now it is Mirage's rebuttal for 6 minutes, and that will start now.
Great. So, yeah, I'm going to again bring up what I had mentioned earlier. How are you going to change anything if you don't have the power to change it? I know it sounds like a very simplistic thing, but the reality is we can sit in our little rooms, we can sit in our bar nights, we can sit in our basements, Facebooking on social media about all the changes we want. We can have YouTube streams with 20 libertarians tuning in, listening to us and preach to the choir. It's not going to change anything if the people that we actually need to come and vote. First of all, they got to come and vote, and then they got to vote for us. They're not going to care and listen to any of this. I have spoken to people at length about this stuff. They don't understand who we are. They're confused about our brand. And frankly, they're so uneducated about us that they relate us to some of the rather bad comparisons down south. The Tea Party down south, the Trumpets, the Trumpers, all that stuff. We have a huge problem there already with the education side. I'm going to give you some examples now about this whole thing about power and, whether should we be changing culture or getting power. Imagine you're on board the Titanic, Alex. You're Leonardo DiCaprio. There's an iceberg coming. You can see it. I'm the captain. Only the captain has the power to steer the ship. Now, you as Leo, you can wish all day. You can go and educate all the other people on the ship and tell them there's an iceberg coming. We're sailing too fast. This is dangerous. We've got to change direction. You can do all that you want. If you don't get up there and have that captain's hat on, you're not going to make anything happen. This ship is going to keep sailing that way, and you can cry and scream all day long about it, and you're still going to hit that damn iceberg. Case in point, when the actual ship was sailing, that's exactly what happened. They hit the iceberg when people were warning them because they didn't have the power. I'm going to give you some examples now about some parties that have actually taken steps similar to what I'm suggesting here about getting elected, getting the power. The ACT Party down in New Zealand, the Association of Consumers and Taxpayers, they basically follow classic liberalism approach like we do. And they actually have had elected members. They had 10 seats in 2020. They actually got power. And they've actually had made some changes in their government over there. Another one is the Free State Project that I'll talk about a little later. They went into New Hampshire. They also managed to enact a lot of changes, and changes having power that ultimately leads to the kinds of cultural changes that you have the power to enact. So, yeah, I mean, my main thing here is that if you want to create the change, and you and I agree, we both want change. I want to see people having libertarian beliefs. I want to see all those policies happen just like anybody out there. It's a matter of how we get there. And I think that the only way it's going to happen is if we go out there, get elected, go into legislature, and even if we're a minority, even if we try to pass bills, even if we have activities that are deeply unpopular, even if we're that, what was that lady that got into the federal government? She was fired by Trudeau out of her own party. Rayborn. Even if we're one of those, it's like a dam. I mean, if you've got this huge dam, the Hoover Dam, and you want to break that dam, metaphorically speaking, and there's a libertarian here and a libertarian here, and they're all tapping with a little hammer on little corners of the dam all over the place, nothing's going to happen. We've got to make a concerted effort to make a crack in that dam. It doesn't matter where it is, we got to make a crack, because that crack is going to lead to the inertia necessary for something to happen. And then we have bigger cracks, then we get in there. I mean, these are activities that have already started happening. We haven't really made any inroads in BC. We haven't made any inroads at the federal level either. And, you know, I don't want to see us making all this effort, having all this passion without any results. I'd like to see one of us, whether it's me, whether it's you, whether it's someone in the party, I want to see one of us get in there and be that a-hole making noise and making those remarks about libertarianism. And even if it takes 20 years, 10 years, whatever, at least we've got power in there. Somebody's listening to us. I can see us on the CBC and Global. They can show us that we have a seat in there. We have to be on the radar. And I'm sorry, but having all these social events, having barbecues and all that stuff, it's great for all the existing party members. It's great for all the people that are already convinced. I've been to so many of these events. It's always the same people coming. It's always the same people that, you know, they're drinking the Kool-Aid. So, yeah, that's it.
Okay, great. Next is Alex.
I get
cross-examination.
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 Well, I like the term. That's
So
important.
we will start that.
I got 3 minutes for that.
3
Right,
minutes
yeah.
starting now.
Okay, wow. Well, the best way that Tim Moen put it, it's if we're going to get libertarians elected, we either need libertarians to become statists or we need people to become libertarians. Because if they're going to elect us, they need to believe our message.
Mhm.
And so we need to create libertarians to vote for us, or we need to change our policies.
Mhm.
And those are the only two ways. And I'm not prepared to do a change in our principles. That might be party or later speech or not. But so if we're going to become statists, then I might as well just be with the BC Liberals. And by the time I get into a position where I have a chance of being elected, does it really matter anymore? If I'm being now, the political party is now dictating what I can do.
Mhm.
As for ACT in New Zealand, terrible example, my friend. They have a totally different electoral process where it's their success cannot be replicated in BC or Canada. Now, if you want to talk about electoral reform, that's a whole nother debate series we can have. And I would probably love watching it, not being a part of it. But I assure you that is a key to why they had success getting in there. Just merely being a registered party, they were allowed one seat, just being registered. And for a long time, their leader was their key placeholder. Now, like you said, they had great success that last time, and now they're making a difference. But if you don't have that automatic one seat, BC Libertarians aren't even going to get to that one where they can make a difference, like you said.
Right.
Free State Project, perfect example of changing culture. These people are physically moving to another state with the intention to take over the government. Their whole idea is that they're going to outnumber people that think differently than them, so they can vote for libertarian principles. So this is absolutely an example that promotes my idea that it's not that we need to be getting people elected, it's we need to change the people that are electing people. So if you're going to physically move them from one part of the world to another, that sounds like a lot of work and a lot of commitment from those people.
Well, if I may, because this is a cross-examination.
Yes, fair enough.
So just to be clear,
Yeah.
But I mean, if you look at the numbers, I looked at the numbers. New Hampshire, it's a very low population state, the second lowest after Wyoming.
Oh, is it?
Yes,
Okay.
but I believe so. It might be second or third.
Sure.
But they chose it for a reason. And yes, they had 20,000 people in the free state project sign up. 5,000 as of last year have actually gone. It's still, they're not outnumbering the number of voters in New Hampshire by any margin. I mean, New Hampshire has a population well over, I don't have the numbers in front of me, it's definitely over 1 million. So it's not that they've got libertarians that are moving in there and just outvoting the non-libertarians. The fact is it's kind of like they're creating the culture you want, but they're doing it by also getting power. I mean, the fact is they're enacting laws, and the state of New Hampshire, the residents in New Hampshire are seeing these benefits. I mean, non-libertarians there are seeing that, oh my God, we've got all this cool stuff in place. You know, they got no sales tax at the state level. They've got no income tax at the state level. They had some ridiculous knives laws for possession of knives in New Hampshire, all gone. They've done numerous things in New Hampshire. This is obviously result of these movements, and there's actual empirical evidence of this, and you're actually seeing that non-libertarians are shifting there. They're actually coming about organically as a result of policy change coming from above.
And that's a fair point. That last point you make is the only thing that I will absolutely concede to you. It's because now they see the benefits of when someone's in power, but simply to get them there, you need to already have that culture. They're the live free or die state. Well, like right off the bat. No.
Well, we might be doing a chicken and egg.
Yes,
We might be doing a chicken and egg, because I might argue that if we enacted a free riding project or free town project in BC, and I don't have any numbers in my head, let's say we chose a riding and we did the same thing. We're not going to have enough libertarians to actually outvote them, literally.
Right now,
but
we don't.
You kind of supported me there in saying that they actually created laws that became popular, and people are like, wait a minute, what the heck's going on? We don't have taxes like this and this. Oh, this is so much better. We have all these sorts of freedoms that you don't get in California or New York. And they're like, this is great. And yes, I mean, I think the best way to change someone's mind is to let them change it on their own when they realize things. And that comes organically from going in. And, you know, it is unlibertarian to go in and, you know, try to tell people this is the law, this is how you do it. But you know what? It works. And you know what? Sometimes people don't know what's good for them. They go in, you tell them what's good for them. They don't like it. It's change. And then boom, they're like, wow, this is really great. I'm loving this. I got more money in my pocket. I can go on vacation. I really like this. What's this libertarian thing again? Or well, whatever it is, ACT Party, Libertarian Free State Project. I like to convince people that way. I work in business. I work in sales. I've done sales. I'm a shitty sales guy. I can tell you right now, my most successful sales endeavors were when I wasn't selling a damn thing. They just came to me and said, I've heard about it. It's cool. Man, oh man, well, who are you? What is this?
My last point, we talked about Rayborn again. I forget her first name. It's a hyphenated name. Wilson Rayborn. Yeah. She, again, point you're trying to bring up as an example of somebody who's just in there, a thorn in the side. She decided not to run again because she was voiceless in the House of Commons. As an independent, had no support, was on no caucuses, no committees. So it was, she was a great representative for her constituents, but had no effect on policy. So there was no benefit to her being in there. So had she been the one basket that they put all their eggs into, if this was a political party, if this was where you put all your resources, like, all right, we got her there. We got her we got Andrew elected to the Legislative Assembly in Chilliwack. Perfect. We got our libertarian in there. And it turns out that he can't do anything because he's got no influence. Then you wasted all those resources for something that hasn't actually changed the way that the province as a whole feels. And the government, we know politics is bullshit because they're not doing what's best for British Columbians. They're doing what's going to get them reelected. So they're never going to side with what's best for people unless they think that that's what people want. And that's what I talk about, changing the culture, changing attitudes, educating people. And I think that's the end of my rebuttal. I know we went off. We changed the rules on you, Andrew.
It was good because it was a
but it was good.
So I'll let it go. So now you get to answer his rebuttal, but it's 3 minutes.
Okay. I don't know how to. All right. I think that's kind of what I did.
Okay.
I guess my only other thing I'll add, and I don't think it'll take 3 minutes. It really is that absolutely I want the same thing as you. I want a libertarian to be at the table, and not necessarily a BC Libertarian. We're in the yellow and black. Could even be somebody wearing a different color. And if I know that they're a principled libertarian, I could care less what color they're wearing. Having said that, we have so many examples where people like Max Bernier was a great one that a lot of people talked about him as a real principled libertarian. But of course, Tim Moen rightfully pointed out that he voted to bomb the bejesus out of Libya. Like he was for a lot of this foreign intervention that a good principled libertarian would be against. So just because you say that you're a libertarian and you act that way, and you say that you're going to act in the best interest of all Canadians, of all British Columbians, because is that not what a libertarian is? It's somebody that doesn't cater to special interest groups. They're not going to cater to the democracy side of it, where the majority counts, the majority rules. Every single person's rights are important. So if a person gets into office and is suddenly going to start voting in a way in the House of Commons or the Legislative Assembly in a way that is going to take away some people's rights, take away their freedom, well then what's the point even having them there? And if they're going to act that way and they're going to say it's out of self-preservation, just to stay, I got to do it just so I can stick around and maybe have a chance to vote liberty or freedom wise on something else. Well, I'd rather you weren't there, because when it comes down to it, if you're going to support any sort of violence, anything that goes against the non-aggression principle, then you're not a libertarian to me at this point. So that's my only point I'll say is, like, even if we get somebody there they have to make concessions, then why would a party like us that have such minimal resources, we have minimal manpower, we have minute dollars, why would we put that all to get someone elected if they're not going to be able to do anything? There's my.
Okay. Next will be our 6-minute closing rebuttal.
Oh man, I don't have 6 minutes.
I don't think I do either.
Or whatever.
just
And
Mirage,
Mirage, you'll
go first.
go
Okay.
first on this.
All right.
Okay.
Just sort of wrap up all your ideas, and then we'll have
Yeah.
questions.
All right. Well, thanks, Alex. I love the last thing you said, because it's a good segue into what I was going to say about limited resources. I think it's a catch-22. We are a fringe party right now. I hate being labeled as one, but we are one. And part of why I want us to get elected is so we can break that dam and go from fringe to being one of the big colors, right? Whatever it is, the orange party or
We'll be the yellow party.
the yellow party. Let's be the yellow party. Okay. So here's the catch-22. We can't focus on changing culture and getting elected. We don't have the resources.
Agreed.
Thank you. And we got to make a decision, which is why we're sitting here. And I think I've made some very strong points about the fact that my colleague here, he's talking about making change. He's talking about, lots of things that he believes in. But the reality is, I haven't heard anything to me that constitutes an actual material change and strategy that we're making here. We're basically, it's the same song and dance. It's the same song and dance that we've been doing in BC ever since I got involved in libertarianism. And it's the same thing I've been seeing happening at the federal level. I think we do it better at the provincial level, but it's not enough. So doing it continuously this way is not going to do anything. And I'm not down for that. So it's like, we got to make a decision. And you know what? Getting elected is it's not necessarily going to be a perfect approach that's going to be in line with all our principles. Sometimes we need to make compromises. I'm not talking about compromises that necessarily completely are opposed to our principles as libertarians, but we may have to do certain things to get in there and to make the change. Sometimes that's necessary. It's a necessary evil. We know about necessary evils. We do that in our life all the time.
Utilitarianism.
Yeah, it's being practical, pragmatic, whatever. So yes, I think we have to spend our resources. We have to make some changes if we want to get in, if we want to enact those changes. Hey, I'd love for us to get somebody in power, even if it's one person. I'll come to you and I'll be like, hey, Alex, we've got someone in there. He's probably not going to get any sort of support. He's probably going to be the only person in there that he's going to be the black sheep in legislature. but he can go and talk about the change you want, and it's going to be recorded. It's going to, whatever that channel is.
Yeah, CPAC.
Yeah, it'll be there. It's going to
Yeah.
be on the record. We need to get in there. We're not on the record. We're not even on the radar. People have never heard of us. It's unbelievable.
It is.
So now, yeah, so we've been trying this forever. And you know, this is not really a question. It's rhetorical since this is a rebuttal. If it was so effective, whatever we've been doing, wouldn't we have people in government right now? I mean, come on. I'm a scientist. I'm all about inputs and outputs. I keep putting this input into the software. I keep getting the same output. Okay, I don't want that output. I want something new. I got to change something. I'm pitching, we need to change something. And what do we need to change? We need to get into office. Maybe we're not doing it correctly. And, you know, I haven't heard about a magical new strategy from my opponent, some magic sauce that's going to come in, that's going to change things so we can get that power. Because like I said, my end game is actually the same as Alex's. I just don't think the path to get there is as simple as he thinks it is. I want change. I'm not specifically personally interested in who is in the government. They could be whatever they want to be. But I want my society to believe in the same things you believe in. That's why we're part of this party. But I think that to get there, we got to get someone sitting up there on the throne to do that. And that's really what it is. I'm looking about the practical path to get there. Now, the elected incumbents that are in there right now, they want things to stay exactly the way they are.
Yeah.
They want status quo. And it's irrespective of whatever lies and nonsense they put in when they're campaigning. We all know what all those guys say. Sometimes they even steal some of our ideas, but at the end of the day, they're just there to keep things exactly the way they are. They want to have the power that they have. And some of those guys probably have backroom deals. Who knows? I don't know what's going on, but those guys, they're friends, and they don't want us fringe parties coming in. They want things to stay the way they are. They will continue to be using our money, your and my money, to undermine our own efforts. That's what they're doing. This is literally the shame of it. We're paying our taxes. They're using our money to undermine our own abilities. I mean, I tried to get into debates the last time we had an election. I was not allowed to go in because we didn't have any seats in legislature. And I'm like, well, how am I supposed to get a seat in legislature if you don't know about it?
Yeah.
So yes, we need to make change, but we need to get elected because that's the key to the kingdom. Look at the Green Party. Good example. I don't like the Green Party personally. I don't support them. They had 2 seats, I believe, in the last, was it the last election? No, not the last one, the second last one, when Horgan came in. And what was it? There was a deal made, right? I mean, you know what? Having having those 1 or 2 or 3 seats can be incredibly empowering, especially in a province where the 2 big parties are pretty neck and neck, right? Now, I don't know if that's going to happen necessarily again, but having those 2 or 3 seats can be a lot more powerful than you're making it out to be. So that's another thing. And like I said, we gotta put that crack on that down. Now, the last thing I want to say, which is a little bit, it's actually tied to stuff that's happened in the last 72 hours. Look what's going on in Ukraine and Russia. We got Vladimir Putin. He went in there, and let's just say for the sake of argument, and this is completely politically incorrect. Let's say the guy wanted to go in there to enact change because he thought that Ukraine needed change that they don't know anything about. They don't know what's good for them. He's going in there. He's doing some pretty nasty things, and I totally am against imperialism and what he's doing. But he's going in there with the might of power, and he's going to enact the changes. Now, the changes he might enact are probably not the changes I would agree with or you would. It's so wrong. But the reality is, in our world, if you want to enact change, you have to have power of some kind. This guy's using it for the wrong reasons. But at the same time, just sitting by quietly and hoping that people are going to change by having events and talking about it and streaming things, it's not going to result in that. We really have to take the bull by the horns. Sorry to use a cliche.
Why? Use it.
I don't like cliches. I like to come up with my original thought, but it's a nice one. And you know, we have to really put our efforts on getting someone in there. Let's pick a town. Let's pick a riding, whatever it is. Let's do that. I've suggested it to the party before.
For somebody who didn't have 6 minutes, you did pretty good.
Yeah.
All right. And I'm finishing it off here.
You're finishing it off.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I'm not going to nearly have what Mirage just said, but you talk about we just got to get into office, and you criticized me for suggesting we're going to do the exact same thing we've been doing with this party since 1986. We're going to have supper clubs, and we're going to have, you know, barbecues and we're gonna things like that. Well, and then you accuse me of not having a strategy of change. I suggested in my opening a few ideas to tweak. Nothing drastic, but I am fully aware that we need to change things from what we've been doing. I love your input output example. That's a great way to look at it. The input that we have right now is not cutting it. So something has to change. So we need to look at what we're doing now and we need to improve upon it. And one of the ways that I suggested, I said, we spend a lot of money, to be honest, I'm not on the executive at large, but the reality is, are we focusing on the right things? It might be worthwhile to commission a survey of the province at whole and to find out what the normies think. Like, what are their libertarian, their freedom top 3 issues? I know with the BC Liberals, they brought on ICBC as their platform for the last election. Where'd they get that from? That was us. And I don't know if I'm like backing you up here or not, but like maybe it's just, I'm just proud of it. Yeah. I'm proud of it that we had a grassroots movement. Our tiny little fringe party created a grassroots movement that the official opposition was forced to accept as their platform. So I don't think that it's impossible to make change at that level, but you're right. Things have to change. We're not doing it great now. We have room for improvement. Got a whole ballroom for improvement. But I also didn't hear any recommendations from you on how to get elected, other than let's stack a constituency, which you admitted it's going to be really hard to do. It's going to be very difficult when you have 100,000 voters in any given constituency. How do we get enough people in there? Like, even if it's a by-election. I know the school district by-election I just ran in. Do you know how many votes won the spot? 900. We could probably get 900 people to move somewhere, maybe, but that's not the norm. That's not the norm. It's usually in the tens of thousands of votes that decide an election. So your recommendation is we stack the deck in one area, and I'm saying that the BC Libertarian Party on its own doesn't have the resources to make a difference, to get somebody elected. I know we've tried it in by-elections before, here and there. It's usually the easiest way, but we've had no success. So either, like, if we're going to do that, then we also need to change the way that we're campaigning, because if all you're doing is throwing more money and people at it, that's still not going to solve the problem. I guess, I don't know. Last bit of my rebuttal is you're talking about Putin, and don't get me wrong. All I know about what's going on over there right now is I hear from the Tom Woods, the Dave Smiths, and the Hortons of Scott Hortons of the world, and it's great information. But when you say, like, oh yeah, look at, like, when you're siding with an authoritarian, with a totalitarian, you're saying, well, I don't agree with what he's doing, but I like the way he's doing it. That makes me cringe a bit, because I like forcing liberty on people as far as making them be self-responsible. Self-responsibility, I think, is something that everyone in this room can get behind. The flip side to that is to say, I'm going to take away your right of democracy. So it's a dangerous precedent to say, hey, I'm going to hijack your government, your own systems, and it's for your own good, because what if we're wrong? And there we go. That's all I got.
Excellent.
What if we're wrong? I have that thought every now and then.
So this next part is sort of just the add-on, where
Sure.
there's going to be sort of questions, whether it's questions from people that are in the room, or I have a few questions for both of you.
Beauty.
All right.
One is, I'm a huge fan of the Free State Project. I think that the way that they went about creating the libertarian society of a place that, now there will be people listening that they might think this is ridiculous, but they don't have seatbelt laws. They don't have helmet laws. It's against the Constitution to have traffic cameras and speed traps. They are the first jurisdiction in the US to advocate for crypto transactions. It's the paradise that it was. And how it came forward was a bunch of people got sick and tired of living in the Californias. The libertarians that we are got sick and tired of living in the British Columbias of the US. So they decided to move somewhere and created their own. So my question is for you, Alex. You say that there's 100,000 people in a riding. They're not going to all vote.
No.
Right? In my riding when I ran, I think that there was 35,000 people, 40,000 people
that voted.
Yeah. Right? And being a first-time candidate, I got 175 votes.
Yeah.
Right? So no experience, didn't really like the process, had to work full-time on top of it. So I didn't put the time into the campaign.
Yeah.
But that said, that's 1% that I created that voted for me on a first-time candidate with zero experience, preaching ANCAP values, hardcore anarchist values, and I got 175 people to vote for me. I believe that if we stacked up ways, you don't need 30,000. You need a couple hundred, and then a decent candidate that can put it, and they'll convince the rest. So I guess my question is, when you get about 30% of the vote, how will that not work when there's basically we average about 35% per riding?
And that's what I'll argue back at you. Are we talking about a BC Liberal or an NDP candidate? Or are we talking about a BC Libertarian candidate? Because you're not getting 30% of the vote as a BC Libertarian Party candidate today. And I don't know what we would have to do. I don't know. We would need to be in a riding that not only is sympathetic to liberty and freedom views, which there are places like that. I know that's where Rempel ended up with like 15% or something, and or was it Jody Craven, one or the other. They had like a really good double-digit showing.
Yeah.
So you need that, but you also need to be going against bad candidates too. And you need to have it at a time when we're able to focus on one candidate. So I'm not confident that you're going to get that 30% of the vote, that probably would either win it for you or have you close enough that you'll be noticed and be taken more seriously next time, which is probably something you can get behind. So my short answer is I still think that, yeah, sure, you don't need to have 100,000 votes. You don't need 50,000 votes, but you're still going to need 30,000 votes. And I can't see us getting that as a BC Libertarian Party in the next 20 years. And that's a lot of work. If that's our number one goal, just to get one person in, and it's going to take us that long, and it's going to take that much money and time and space from us volunteers, like Mirage said, the same people come up the same barbecues over and over. You're the one hosting them, man. Like that is not sustainable.
So my rebuttal to that is we've done the sort of to what Nira said. We've done the same thing. Like we've been around since 86, right? And we've lost ground in that Overton window.
I don't think so, but
you don't think that
I don't think we've made any ground. That's the problem. But I don't think we've lost ground.
I do.
Okay. Oh.
Right. I think we've lost ground as society has moved further and further left.
BC specifically. That's our province, yeah.
So we haven't been able to, whether we've lost ground, we sure as heck haven't made it up.
I have not made up ground. Correct.
So changing the Overton window, I believe needs to happen.
Yep.
But maybe the only way to make it happen is to show people, you know what, a libertarian society isn't going to lead to all out anarchy like they have in Hollywood, like the Purge, right? It's going to be like, oh, these guys are just letting me make adult decisions for my family.
Like, oh, I can buy my own health care.
Yeah.
And I could, like, my dollars,
or
my kids' education dollars follow me.
Or I can go and buy unpasteurized milk from a farmer
right
a kilometer and a half down the road.
There's a branding issue here too, right? I mean, I like you, Alex, I was campaigning, trying to get signatures, got a lot of hate, got a lot of love, and a lot of people just ignoring me. And looking at the haters, a lot of them, like I said during the debate itself, they unfortunately compare us falsely to anarchists. They think that, first of all, we're right wing, which we're not. I hate being called a right wing person. I'm not right wing or left wing. I don't even like that analogy. So I think there is a branding issue, which is a completely separate topic out of scope for today. But going to what you're saying about the Free State Project, I mean, yeah, we don't have to get that many people. There's a lot of ridings and even jurisdictions where the turnout is very low. And, you know, we have to sit down and first of all, agree on, like you brought up as part of your rebuttal, and I didn't want to interrupt because it's a rebuttal, that I didn't bring up any strategies. I mean, yes and no. I mean, I don't really want to, in the scope of this debate, go into how we're going to get elected. It was more about whether or not the focus should be to get elected or not. So that's really what I was focusing on. But now, if we're talking as part of this Q&A about getting elected, one of the strategies that we could do is, you know, choosing a low population riding. Now, I was just looking as you were speaking, in BC, most of the ridings are relatively equal population. They're about 90, 100,000. They're evenly distributed. But, you know, there are other strategies we can use, like, you know, finding a riding where the turnout was pretty low. You know, you could argue then that a lot of the voters are disillusioned. They don't want to come out. They don't like whoever's running. They don't like the options. Well, that's a sales opportunity. Those are people out there that don't like the product that's out there. The product being the existing candidates. Well, let's go be that candidate that they have been looking for, and let's sell ourselves to them. That's an opportunity. Go to that riding. I don't know which riding it is. That's something that we'd have to research.
And I agree with you that is something that you would have to put
Steal those votes.
proper work into.
Yeah.
This isn't as simple as a quick Google search. That's the only reason this is even something to debate, because this takes time and not necessarily money, but maybe money too, if we end up doing a survey.
It's going to take time and money.
It's going to take a lot of time.
It's going to take a time and money, but I mean, I personally, this is just me speaking, you know, in my business, personally, education, focusing just like a laser. You wanted to get through something, you want to break through something hard, you got to focus and just hammer at it, and it'll happen. And I mean, I'm not going to say I've been here since '86 in this party, of course not. But in the limited years I've been here, I've seen the most passionate people I've ever met in terms of wanting to change the government, change their people. And the most unfortunate thing is we're not using the right strategies. And I think if we diverted that to the right strategies and focusing it the way I said, we can actually get success. And I don't know what the timeline is. I hope it's not 10 years as well. I want to see it happen a lot quicker than that. But it's going to require us to use strategies. And yes, I think that the Google example you gave is, yes, obviously it's not just a Google search, but I actually don't think it's super hard to get these sorts of statistics from Elections BC or Elections Canada.
Well, fair enough. And the stats exist. And we're, as a registered party, we can access that, no problem. All we have to do is ask
absolutely.
For it. But my point is still more like the deep dive, the drilling down into where our real opportunities are, and demographics, right? Like that's not something that Stats Can is going to easily give up. Like, but those are things that would help if, again, I'm not supporting this, but if you're going that route, I know there's a way to do it right. I just think that it will be our undoing as opposed to our crowning achievement.
Right.
But I agree with you that there is a route to go.
Absolutely.
Where if you're going to do it right. Like, you're going to have to drill down to demographics. You're going to have just down to age, down to religious leanings, everything. It's possible.
But Alex, honestly, this is a separate thing. But I mean, if you look at the NDP, you look at the Liberals, whether provincial or federal, right? You look at the Bloc Québécois or the Parti Québécois. These guys, unfortunately, we don't have the funding. This is not your full-time job. This is my full-time job. If we actually, and this is something we didn't touch upon, if we want to be government, we have to make this our job. This cannot just be something we do part-time. And I know I'm not being pragmatic, but you're talking about all these efforts. The stuff you're talking about is what they do. That is what they do. We have to do that.
Yeah.
That's how Jagmeet Singh and his cronies are getting seats. I mean, somebody has to do that. So I understand you're telling me we don't have the time to do it, but we need to make the money. We need to make the time and money to do it, or we're just going to be fringe.
Okay, so now I got a question for Mirage. So if we do get elected, what's to say that we actually make the change that we promised? Because one, we're going to be maybe one seat, right? There's no guarantee that we're going to have a minority situation where a one seat person could have
leverage,
a leverage to make the deal.
Mhm.
To me, there's no different standing on the soapbox in the legislature to standing on the soapbox on a podcast if all we're doing is preaching what we want to happen. So how do we go about getting people elected to enact the policies that we want, the tax policies, the societal policies, the things that will make life for British Columbians freer tomorrow than they are today?
I don't have a great answer for that, and I'm not going to act like I do.
Okay.
What I will say is, this is from a physics standpoint, to use metaphors there, there's a snowball effect here. We've got to get a start somewhere. We have to get someone in there. Yes, they're going to be that one person. They're not going to get a lot done. And you're right. Get that whole minority situation that happened in the Green Party. There's no way we can count on that. That would be foolhardy. That having been said, you get into legislature, you're on the radar. People are talking about you. They're hearing about you. There's a pretty big difference between being a party that doesn't have any seats towards one that does. That's and we got to look at this from a milestone perspective, right? We have to have established goalposts, milestones. We as a party need to accomplish this and this and this. I think one of the first things we need to talk about is getting into legislature. Maybe it's not the first thing. There might be steps in between, but that's a pretty big milestone we have to aim for. And once we're in there, I think it opens up a lot of things. I haven't looked into what it changes legally from the standpoint of funding and other things that we might benefit moving from where we are to doing that. But there's definitely going to be an awareness thing. I think that if we actually manage to get that far, we're going to be much more successful in also getting new members to come in. They're going to see, hey, there's this guy here. He's in the legislature. He's not getting any laws passed, but he's there. I mean, somebody put him up there. What's going on here? People are going to talk about it. We're also going to get the press calling us. Guaranteed. They're going to be interested. They're going to know. I mean, it's very newsworthy. We heard, what was it, in New Hampshire or somewhere in the States? I mean, some libertarian, I don't even know if they were a Libertarian Party member, they got elected, and it was all over the news. I mean, we are going to get into the news. We're going to get press. We're going to get interest. That is what I'm looking to get. And this is a strategy I use in my business as well. I mean, you want to get that name out there in marketing. I mean, otherwise, if nobody knows about you, what's the point of whatever you're doing? What's the point of building a great product if nobody knows about it?
So I got one more question, and then we have two people in the room who might have a couple.
All right.
This one will be for Alex again.
Okay.
The last 2 years, we've had an extremely ineffective opposition in the fact that nobody pushed back on the COVID narrative at all. Having one person that is a libertarian that is elected could have made even a slight difference by asking the questions in the legislature during question period. What is the science that is being followed? Right? The Liberal Party just backed everything that the NDP did and didn't push back because personally, I don't know why.
They didn't have leadership.
So my question is, how can we make the difference pushing back on emergencies, like states of emergency that were called, by just talking on podcasts and trying to change culture? Yeah, these freedom rallies were great, but imagine if we were in there to look Corgan in the eye and call him out on his bullshit. Sorry for swearing, but right, like, so that's my question is, how could we be as effective in calling out the bullshit narrative that we went through the last 2 years by being on the sidelines and just trying to change the culture of the masses?
Conservative Party of Canada is now come out against a whole bunch of stuff that we would support most days of the week. More freedom. Where were they the last year and a half? It's because they were following the culture. They were following what they thought voters wanted. And then suddenly they felt they put their finger in the air, the winds of change came through. And suddenly now thought it was politically relevant for them to go against the government. That's why O'Toole had to leave.
Right.
Because it's all about politics. So The only reason that there is any sort of pushback ever is if it's politically beneficial. So as a single person in the House, like you're going to be ignored. We saw the prime minister of the country walk out of question period. You're going to be, so I can't speak to this because this is I don't know any situation like this other than David Seymour of the ACT Party in New Zealand, when for 2 full terms he was the only member of ACT in there, and I don't have any idea on how that went down for him. What I do know is they had a really good campaign. As their right-wing party dropped off in popularity, he picked up 5 of those seats. His party, not him, but it was his party, picked up 5 seats as the right-wing party collapsed. So one person in there, is that going to make a difference?
Well, let me clarify a fallacy of sorts.
Oh, sure.
I'm kind of making up the words as I go. It's a numerical fallacy. I have the list of fallacies here, but I can't remember them all. But I mean, whether you have 20 libertarian elected members in the legislature, or you got one, at the end of the day, there's a microphone. There's one person speaking at a time, I'm assuming.
Yeah.
And hey, look, just speaking arbitrarily or rather randomly, if I happened to be that one person that got in and I was only libertarian in Victoria and I had a gang of NDPers and liberals sitting there staring at me, I got no problem going in there being the big mouth. Hey, I'm still going to get my mic time. And hey, you know what? If I'm that one guy there, as Andrew said, I'll be asking the tough questions to Horgan. And you know what? It's infinitely better to have that one person there being a complete a-hole to Horgan, as far as Horgan's concerned, asking those questions.
If you did a poll of Americans and asked them, who is Ron Paul? I don't think you're going to get a good response. He was the one guy standing up in Congress, getting his mic time, talking out against bill after bill after bill that was bullshit and egregious overreach of the state. He was, again, with the Republicans, not even with, he didn't get his work done as a member of the Libertarian Party. He left them, became a Republican, got a lot of stuff done. But the flip side is when he was in a house that should have been sympathetic to some freedom, liberty ideas, he was still the only one there talking out against some stuff. And nothing happened. They're still going to war potentially with Ukraine. They still went to Libya. They still went to Yemen.
True, but they're like the term, the Ron Paul revolution.
Hey, I hear you. I hear you.
So,
but what changed politically?
Politically,
culture-wise, he changed a lot. He changed a lot,
right?
Culturally.
So, but he was elected.
Right.
When he changed it, he was on the stage when he looked at Rudy Giuliani and basically said the Americans were at fault for 9/11.
He's getting TV time. He's getting recognition. You're right. The majority of Americans probably wouldn't know what he is, but to add some humor to our conversation, since I've been a little bit dry, if you ask the random American on a map of the United States where New Jersey is, they wouldn't know where it is either.
Oh shit, that's a good one.
So honestly, but who's Ron Paul? I'm sorry, but
the Ron Paul created a lot of libertarians, right? He brought the Dave Smiths in. He brought the Tom Woods in.
He brought me in.
He brought me in.
I was already on the train, so
and I'm not American.
So
exactly.
But he changed the culture, yes. But he did it as an elected representative by being on that.
That's right.
That thing.
Sure.
And he backed up what he was preaching, right? It's one thing to sit there and say on the stage and be like, I'm against this. But then you go look at his voting record, and his voting record
was consistent.
Consistently what he said. Right. And that helped with the revolution. You finally found a guy who was not full of shit. Right. I see that we got a question.
The question that I have is that, do you guys not see any benefit to being in the leadership debates? Because the leadership debates is where a majority of people actually see you, and then you're not going to get into the leadership debates unless you have a seat in the legislature. We saw that in in federally, you're not, Maxime Bernier, for
Can
instance.
I comment on that?
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't mean to interrupt, but I kind of wanted to get a first
Yeah.
go at it.
Yeah.
I don't know what to say.
I mean, I'm not a PPC supporter myself.
Yeah.
I'm actually on the fence in terms of federal politics, but Maxime Bernier, I mean, yeah, the last election, it was, to put it mildly, it was infuriating to me that he wasn't invited. He was invited to the first one because he was actually holding a seat, I believe, in Beauce, one of the ridings in Quebec, and this time he didn't. He lost his seat in the first election or the second last election, so they didn't invite him in, which to me is just a complete technicality. I mean, the guy should have been there. And you know what? You're right, Phil. It's marketing. I mean, politics, and it's all about marketing. I mean, you got these other incumbents up there, they're talking, they're debating, it's branding. People are hearing them and people think these are my options. Well, Max Bernier was an option. Tim Moen was an option. Who even knows who Tim Moen is?
Right.
Nobody
No.
knows who Tim Moen is.
No.
Nobody. I didn't know about Tim Moen until I joined the party.
Right.
Liberal.
The
Federal
Green Party, I mean, is
Yeah.
a primary example of this. They wouldn't have nearly the support that they have, or what little support they have, without Elizabeth May sitting in seats. They're still a fringe party because they're a little wacko anyway, but
Yeah.
but people are voting for them because you've got that one person there that shows up at every debate.
Yep.
And
You want to get the invitations, right?
yeah.
Oh, I can speak to that. I lost to there was a Green Party candidate once I ran against that withdrew from the election because of a scandal. He still beat me 2-1 in votes.
Yeah.
Even though but they're like, ballots were printed. We're just gonna leave them.
Yeah.
It's like, but people know not to vote for. No, he still beat me 2-1.
Yeah.
Even though you formally withdrew.
No,
So to your point, it's like, they don't even have to show up.
right.
But they have the name recognition. So I don't have a rebuttal to that. I mean, you asked me, like, is it not important that you have your leader at the debate? Absolutely, it's friggin' important. Absolutely.
Have someone with a libertarian branding at the debate. I mean, have them on national
No,
television.
I absolutely agree. It's absolutely important.
Yeah.
And I think for me, I'm not as mad that Tim Moen wasn't invited as I'm mad that that Joe Jorgensen wasn't invited in the US election debates.
Yeah.
What did Gary Johnson, he got 5% that previous election? That's a pretty good click.
Yeah.
That's not nothing.
No,
And so Jorgensen should have been there, and yet then the establishment's keeping us out. So to your point, yes, it's important. I support, and I just wish it wasn't such a horseshit way that, you got to get one elected official. It's bullshit, but I don't know. I'm agreeing with you. It sucks, and that would go a long way for the snowball effect that Mirage is talking about. I'm agreeing. I just honestly think getting that one person there is so unobtainable in our current culture that we would bankrupt ourselves spiritually. We would just go all out for nothing, and we'd be broke. I'm agreeing with you.
So,
That's a great thing, but we're gonna lose it all trying to get it.
My next point is not that I don't necessarily agree that culture needs to move, right? Like, how do we get there? How do we change the culture? Because, like,
try harder.
well, I think that all of us invest a lot of time into this party, right? We have invest a lot of our free time into this party, so it's not an effort thing.
It's not a passion thing.
It's
We are the most passionate group
Yeah.
out there. You go to those debates, you've
So-
been over debates.
I don't disagree that culture needs to change, but I don't think that I don't necessarily know if podcasts like getting people to the Scott Horton show or Dave Smith's show or getting them onto Michael Malice's show is benefiting us in the fact that, okay, it might have people that are agreeing to us, but at the end of the day, are those people coming over, volunteering their time, volunteering their energy, donating their money?
Yeah.
And are they also helping us get votes?
Yeah.
We need
So,
votes.
like, I'm for it. I just don't like until we have the answer on how do we change the culture. Because I agree, the culture definitely. I agree with both of you. That's why I think I was the perfect moderator for this, because I don't really have a stake in the game. I think that both ways are the perfect way to get there. I'm a huge fan of the Free State Project. Like if I was to move to the States, New Hampshire would be where I'd go 100%. That said, I do think that we need to move the culture. I just don't know how to do that. Right? Do we do that by getting elected municipally and start that way? Or do all of us start podcasts and we just throw out there so that they're inundated with libertarian thought?
Well, how are you going to get people to listen to our podcast? How are you going to get people? I mean, getting people's eyeballs and attention costs time and money. And I think I don't want, again, to my esteemed colleague, it's not easy to get power. There's no doubt, but we have to choose the least expensive route to get that change. And honestly, I think we all want the same end. We want culture to change. We want our lives to be better, no doubt.
And not just ours, everyone.
Everyone.
Yeah.
When I say ours, I mean our
know.
society.
Yes,
Yeah,
we agree.
yeah,
We
exactly.
We agree.
But I would almost argue, at the risk of being oversimplifying, that what you want is the end, and I'm discussing the means.
I would argue that you are trying a different way than what we've done before,
Mhm.
and there's some merit to that. In my glass house, like a kettle's black or whatever, the metaphor is I'm calling you out and say it's not going to work. It's easy for me to do from whatever turret that I'm standing on, and I'll continue to do it to
Mhm.
save us the embarrassment, the time, and the money. Having said that, at least you were pitching something different.
Thank you.
And
I just think it's the wrong thing. But we have a lot of people in our executive that are pitching all sorts of bad ideas. And at least, like, I'm so grateful to be in an organization that is trying to come up with solutions.
Yeah.
As opposed to, I can't imagine what it would be like in a BC Liberals war room right now, where they're like, hey, should we just do the same thing we've done for the last 50 years?
Well, one of the advantages we have is we're not a group of yes men.
That's a good point.
The
Yeah, go ahead.
BC Liberals, I mean, they give some historical context. They have typically been business owners and
Right.
free enterprise. It's a free enterprise coalition. It's not really a liberal party, and that kind of leaves them open to have their supporters pilfered by the Libertarian Party in many respects. I mean, they, especially when they start moving further and further away from that fundamental.
Right.
So
We've talked about that, and it's just, again, was it Aaron Gunn or whatever the guy's name is? His name came up again, thinking that, well, now he's been basically blacklisted by his party. Maybe he'll want to come with us. I'm like, well, I don't think so. But you're right. It's not a huge leap from liberal to libertarian. All you have to do is admit that maybe I don't know what's best for everyone. And that's what a good libertarian knows. I don't know what's best for everyone.
It's humility, right? Knowing it's
Yeah.
humility. I think that's the difference.
And a statist doesn't know that. They think
Right.
they know what's best for everyone.
Yeah.
And that's why I have issues with trying to infiltrate those parties.
Mhm.
Because I don't know, I'd be in the fetal position rocking in the shower if I ever had to read one of their policy handbooks.
for sure, but to that point, just to play devil's advocate, I
Yeah,
guess,
do it. Yeah, no,
is
or agree or disagree.
The- the most iconic part of Ron Paul's run is when he looked Rudy Giuliani in the face in the debate, and he said 9/11 was the fault of us. It was our fault.
I absolutely saw that video and it blew me away.
And a Republican telling another Republican that 9/11 was the fault of the Americans, right? He did that, and he got the anti-war libertarians came in mass to support him. He had the highest donations out of all the Republicans. You think of Republicans, you think, okay, that's the military party, right? They're always like, hoorah, USA. Ron Paul received the most votes from active duty military guys during the 2008 campaign. So there might be some value to being on that leadership debate stage, looking Falcon in the face and calling him out on something that he caused that we're dealing with today, sort of thing, right?
And fair enough. That is something that I would like to do, or look Horgan in the face and all these things. Absolutely.
I'm
Would be
sure
nice.
you
Would
two
be
guys
nice.
have fantasized when you watch these debates that,
Oh.
man, oh man, I wish I was up there with a microphone looking at Trudeau or looking at Oregon in the face. We've all done it. I've done it. I'm like, why are we not up there? I mean, we could own these guys, but
Who knows what dumb thing I'd say. Huh?
That's fine.
No,
okay.
no,
I would
not
say
as dumb
it's
as
still
Horgan.
gonna be
Not as
covered.
dumb as Horgan when
it's
he's
still
like,
gonna be in the news.
Horgan says, I don't see race. I was like, that's the progressive catchphrase. You can't say that. And he got rigged for it, which is dumb. You shouldn't have.
Yeah.
But you just shouldn't have said it. You shouldn't have
Do
been
you
in
have
trouble
any
either.
questions? No?
No, it's
So-
any no questions. We could do this all night,
We could.
Mhm,
and
So
the best thing we could possibly come up with is an action plan for what to take to the rest of the people that are going to put in the time, sweat, and money.
mhm.
But
Mhm.
also, I
think there's a lot of
get a beer.
future conversations that can come out from
Yeah,
this. Like, I
yeah.
mean, I think one of them that we didn't really touch on that I mentioned a few minutes ago was this is going to end up having to be a job for someone or whoever's, I mean, being
Yeah,
a politician is
yeah.
a job. It's not a hobby. I mean,
We've talked about that. You used to be an executive member, so
Yeah.
you've been in that
yeah,
conversation
yeah,
when
yeah.
it gets pitched and then shut down pretty quick.
Yeah.
Because you're like, oh yeah, that's right. We don't have $50,000 a year.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
And you bring up good points. I mean, all the analytics, all the effort, that's a lot of work. It can't practically be done by us right now, but our opponents are,
they're doing it.
they're doing that.
They're
I mean,
doing
they got people full time doing these things. That's why they're successful.
well, I think this was excellent. Both had great points, and I think we could argue this over and over again. That's why I picked sort of this debate, because I don't think it's ever going to be settled. Right? We're always going to be sort of like the name change, sort of like the succession. Right? We're a party that one loves to challenge each other, which is what I think is the strongest aspect of it. Is we like to challenge each other so that it's the best ideas coming forward.
Mhm.
Right? And we get damn good at defending our ideas because we have to explain them over and over again to
Mhm.
people who think we're liberals.
Good, very good point.
So yeah, this was great. We have the room for another hour if we want to just keep talking about current events and have other people join in.
Or do we have an online audience at all?
Yeah,
or-
we got 4 people right now
Okay.
on Facebook and a couple people on
Andrew, you want to
YouTube.
beer me? I think there's some beer over there.
Yeah.
I think, first of all, again, while I have some people on the call, I'll say thank you to Andrew for spearheading the debate series.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
The name change debate, that was huge for me. I was so passionate about that. And there was no chance I was going to let anyone else be at this table. And of course, AJ joined me on my side, and we talked against Paul Matthews and Bill Morrison, and I won the debate. And I should be dead in the water. We should never have to talk about it again. But so thank you, Andrew, for
Yeah, thanks,
bringing this
Andrew.
back up.
This was awesome.
And the main reason I wanted to come out for this, not only because I really strongly believe in that there's got to be a better way to get to people's hearts and minds. There's got to be a better way. And let's start that discussion. But also, I'm really passionate about this debate series. And I was really happy to be a part of restarting it. So thanks, Andrew. And I hope I'm not now excluded from the next few just because I did this one.
No, it's open to anybody who ever wants to talk.
Maybe I'll be
Ideas.
the standing guy.
Right. Well, the next one, maybe you could be
The
the
moderator.
moderator.
Oh,
'Cause it's
okay.
the one that I'm the most passionate about.
Which one's that?
National divorce,
Autonomy,
and why I think that
Segregation.
British Columbia is best
separatism.
as an independent.
Come with
country.
Cascadia?
Cascadia forever.
Cascadia?
Or just Vancouver Island.
Yeah.
Just go over there, kick all those Brits and progressives off of Vancouver Island and say, this is ours now. independent
Send them back to
nation.
Ontario or
You,
something?
some of those Gulf islands, you could
Yeah.
probably easier patriate,
Yeah.
for lack of the right.
So that'll be the next
Okay.
one.
Do we have a ballpark a month from now, maybe?
No.
Or longer?
I think every few months, right? Like,
Okay.
there's a lot of stuff going on. Like there's your tax protest.
Which
Um,
everyone listening, all four of you, April 30th in Surrey. It's a Saturday. We're going to be hanging out in front of the old CRA building. It's still some sort of
On King
tax
George
building.
Highway?
It's on King George near the SkyTrain station.
Yep.
Please come out. Details are either already on the website or will be shortly. And I know I have to kick it into high gear because really we talk about getting our message out, and it's not enough if the same 8 or 9 people show up to my protest. I need the corporate press there too covering it, and I need some people that wouldn't otherwise normally come to come out.
I don't know if we need the corporate press, but we need the press, right? Whether it's alternative media that we reach out to. I don't know how people.
Well, that helps.
Yeah, I don't know how people in this room feel about
Yeah.
Rebel News or stuff like that, or Post Millennial,
Yeah.
right? But
The mainstream media, your message will probably be edited heavily to favor their narrative.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
and it's possible. You're right.
And
It's possible. And yet I still want it because I feel that that's how we're going to reach normies. They're going to say, oh,
Yeah.
tax protest. I think I pay too much tax. It's a good point. Oh, and then what did the tax dollars go to? And just to bring up questions in their head they didn't ask before. Because right now, what's the big question? Whether you pay 33% tax or 30% tax? What's the difference? We're talking about anyone making 45K a year or less pays no provincial income tax. Done, scrapped, gone. That's a party of the people, if you ask me.
Yeah.
And then it's a flat tax after that because that's the most fair. Is it do I want any tax? No, I want zero income tax. But we're working with what we got. so that's where we're at. And also Alex Milachkovich, he's also been helping me kind of get some ideas going for it. And we were talking about just the way taxes are collected. Alberta collects their own provincial corporate tax. Quebec collects their own provincial corporate and personal tax.
Mhm.
And so just by collecting it now, they can tailor make their tax a little bit more homegrown than what Ottawa would do. So not that I really like an extra level of bureaucracy. I dislike that for the costs. But the flip side is do we not want it as decentralized as possible? Right? Can you speak to that? Do we want our province to spend just a little bit more on that extra few bureaucrats, but then it's homegrown and you don't have to let Ottawa touch that
Well,
money?
decentralization is.
That's what we
for
want.
sure,
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah.
For sure. I
Right?
guess
Yeah.
the only
But it
the
costs
only-
more, but it's
the
better.
The only
course.
pushback would be the redundancy of there's going to be somebody doing that job for the feds. If the province could take over strictly for the feds and we axe that position federally, and
I see what you mean.
every province just takes on their own
Yeah.
taxes, that's way better. But now we're paying for two
Yeah.
people to do the same
Yeah.
job.
And that's a concern for me. Why a lot of times they talk about, why is Langley Township and Langley City two separate municipalities? They should merge them because then you have only one set of bureaucrats, right? And I'm like, well, actually, there are two very distinct municipalities that have very different needs. So while I'm like, I also would love to save, $500 million a year on this bureaucracy. Also, are you being properly represented?
Mhm.
If you were one's a bunch of rural people, not that townships are rural anymore, but they used to be, then that was the big sell. With Langley City was called Langley Prairie. And then that was basically a bunch of rental buildings and businesses. And then the other Langley, the township of Langley, was a bunch of farms. So yeah, they have very different needs. So do we support that decentralization, or do we support let's get rid of bureaucracy? And I think sometimes that's, as a libertarian, something I struggle with.
Yeah.
Just talking out loud. I know it's not even relevant anymore to this.
I don't,
Go.
I figure why make it easier for the federal government? You know, why make it easier for them?
Yeah. Yeah, make it work for them. Yeah, I hear you.
So back to the next sort of event is the Fraser Valley CA is putting on. I know it was something that you brought up that we always do this
Barbecues.
barbecues. So,
Oh, yeah.
but the
It's
point,
still good.
Barbecues are great.
the point was it's been 2 years for a lot of people
You're right.
since they got
You're right.
really got to feel accepted and part of it, right? Whether, however anybody feels about the vaccine is whatever. The mandates were absolutely
Yeah.
trash in
100%
my
against,
opinion. But so there were people that felt like they've been ostracized from society. So what I wanted to do was just have a barbecue
In person.
in person where
Yeah.
everybody's together. We can talk about whatever we want. I can try to rally the troops for your tax protest to get people out there, but more importantly, just have people together so that we can.
Yeah. When is that again?
It's going to be March 20th.
March 20th.
March 20. Where is it going to be?
It is
Your
going to be
house?
at the Mill Lake Park in
Oh, Mill Lake.
Abbotsford.
Okay.
In Abbotsford?
In Abbotsford.
Mill
yeah.
Lake
Great.
Park.
March 20th.
Okay.
Sunday.
All right.
From 1 to 4.
Oh, I'm gonna put it in here now. I've nothing going that day. I'll
Um,
make the drive
beer
for sure.
beer will be provided by me.
Oh, there we go.
Okay.
It's already.
What
you had me
I'm
at
planning,
beer.
what I'm planning is to do just beer from the local breweries in the Fraser Valley area.
Cute.
Okay.
So that
Cute.
All right. Is there Dead Frog out there?
Dead Frog is in Langley.
Oh, it's in Langley.
So it's
All
not
right.
in mine.
It's not even Alder Grove anymore. Now it's Walnut Grove.
Oh,
Not
okay.
Langley, yeah. Libertarian.
So yeah, that's basically what we have for the next one. So I was thinking April for the next debate series.
Okay.
Mid-April gives us sort of time to because we all have different things. And maybe May makes more sense to do it either of or after, like day before or day after our AGM.
AGM, yeah.
The AGM's coming up too.
That's
right.
right, in May. So
May.
that might be a really good thing to tie into that weekend,
Yeah,
either into the day or into the weekend.
right.
So it's a great idea.
So like that's sort of the way that I was sort of leaning. And then ideally I'd like to do it every 3 or 4 months, right? We get a topic that us libertarians, because we're trying to spend a lot of time right now convincing, as we call them, normies to join the party. And I think that needs to be the outreach, but we also need to have time where we can debate the libertarian issues that we find like fun and stuff. And that's what I want this to turn into.
I
It's
agree.
not arguing climate change with the Green Party person. Like that doesn't interest me,
Mhm.
but arguing
You get Josue in here probably.
but arguing the intricacies of Austrian economics,
Mm.
that interests me.
Yeah.
Right. And having somebody that I know when I come, like, we might be on different sides, but we're still colleagues, we're still friends, we're still on the same team. We just have different views
Right.
and everything. I enjoy
Yeah.
that a lot
And,
more.
and to that point, when we talk about it out loud in this sort of setting, again, it's not about the huge audience or not, but I feel that just having the camera on you adds a certain next levelness to it. Is that a term, next levelness?
Sure.
But that's important because not only does it prepare us for, again, propagating our message to
Mhm.
normies, but also just it helps us sharpen our argument to like ourselves so that we feel more strongly about it.
Yeah.
Because there's some things today that I said that I'm like, I don't know how strongly I feel
Well,
about this.
it's
I'm just trying to argue a point.
But
But when you say it out loud and you say it in a debate scenario,
Mhm.
it's like, oh, I see that there are holes in this. I hope my opponent doesn't tear it apart. So no, this is a great idea. I would love to see them more often, but it takes time to organize
And
and
yeah, I think it as a treat, like we can't get distracted from
other stuff. This
other
can't be a
stuff.
distraction.
Yes,
This
right.
has to add to.
Yes,
Yeah.
it should.
That's a good point. That's a good point, Andrew.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, as far as name change debate, that was great. This one, obviously, I feel strongly this way, but if we had someone at the table, that'd be a game changer. And in reality, the more likely scenario is Chris Erickson and Keith McIntyre flip a liberal. Flip a liberal who's a backbencher.
No, can we do that if there's somebody there?
Of course
Can we,
they can.
Can we just get someone to
And that's
cross
how the
floor?
Green Party got their first seat in BC.
Really?
Was a liberal that switched to the Green Party.
There's a strategy. We don't.
But who do you switch? Right? Again,
Well, again, we
time
have to-
and money.
We have to sit and analyze that. We have to look at these guys, right?
Yeah.
Send some. Are we allowed to do that? Some gift baskets and stuff. I don't know.
Find a guy,
I mean, maybe that's the way. That's the backdoor
Yeah.
entrance,
find a
right?
guy that used to be in the social credit party.
We're
That'll
going
definitely-
way back.
There's
Yeah.
always a weak link.
And I think that's with the BC Liberals right now. They're full of weak links.
Mhm,
Now that they have a leader again,
mhm.
I think Falcon's going to rally them. Also, he's kind of a remnant of when they were in government.
Mhm.
He was so smart. I called it when he left the party. I said he's just trying to get out of there before it burns down. He does not want his name associated with when it collapses. He's going to come back. He's going to come back to be a leader. And I feel like patting myself on the back. I was right. but it's terrible that he's not now associated with all the bad things that the Liberals did. When Rich Coleman, again, I'm not like saying he has praises or anything, but his name is being dragged through the mud. When Falcon's probably just as guilty as he is with a lot of the policies.
No,
that
he
went
jumped
on.
ship.
But he jumped ship just before the paper trail began.
Yeah,
that's
but
right.
so I can guarantee you that the Liberals the NDP have their war rooms have all the dirt on Falcon, right?
I don't think there's enough dirt yet.
You don't
That's
think
my
there's-
problem.
You don't think there's
That's
enough dirt?
why he left when he did. He said to be with family, and that sounds noble, right?
Sure.
Like you want to spend time with your family. But no, I think he knew it was a sinking ship,
Mhm.
got out before it sank, and he was smart. And I think he's now, that party has a chance now because of that. Where had they picked a more radical candidate, like what was that? Dew last name? I can't remember now.
Gavin Dew.
Gavin Dew, yeah. Where apparently like he was also sort of like a fringe libertarian or something. I don't know. Whatever these, I don't
See,
know.
the one that I thought personally, like, don't necessarily agree with everything they said, but the one that I thought would have given the NDP fits was Eli Ross.
See, and I don't know anything about any of
Right?
these
Like, I
people,
think
but-
that if he
but
had a
yeah.
one, he would have given all of them fits, because one, you can't use that progressive bingo, as I call it, where they call you a racist, a Nazi, a fascist,
Because he's
sexist,
yeah,
and misogynist,
immune.
or whatever it is that they use as their bingo. You can't go after him for that. He's proven that he can make the Indigenous relationships work with governments. He cuts the legs off of the NDP attack dogs.
Yeah.
But hey, they went the old boy and
They went the
Falcon.
old boy. So while having a healthy opposition is good for the province, also I think what it does is it makes it even more difficult for us to make headway.
Yeah, but
Whereas when they were really broken and chaotic, that was our end, and we did terribly, because just like the Liberals did terribly at the last election, we did too, because we had the same short notice.
Yeah, was it
Right,
a
it was
pandemic
brutal.
election, right?
Pandemic snap election.
Yeah.
It was brutal.
And
we
hypocritical
we
too,
did
right?
terrible on my own personal level of what I
See,
expected for us.
I would
was-
disagree. I would disagree, because we put in a lot of first-time candidates.
We put it.
A lot of first-time candidates that I
Yeah.
think are going to run again.
Was it noticeably higher proportion of new candidates?
Yes.
Oh yes, it was.
Yeah.
We lost a lot of repeat. Like there was very little repeat.
Mhm.
I was like one of. Well, yeah, put this into perspective. I think one of only 4 that repeated, and I did the second worst.
So
There was only 4 that repeated.
Clayton,
I'm
Sandra.
just picking a number out, but it's not many.
Yeah,
So there's
the timeline was
5
too
or 6,
short for
5 or
me. I
6.
just couldn't do it.
You
No.
had
Yeah.
you had John Rempel.
Oh,
I had 2 drop out. 3 drop out of me last
You,
minute.
you had
Syria.
Sandra. You
Yeah.
had Clayton, Alex, and Golok, right?
right.
It's at least 5, but
Yeah.
not many more.
Not many
that's not
more.
a lot.
Well, when we had 20-ish.
Well, again,
Yeah.
it's like, it's the same
Oh,
thing,
and
right? Like, I
Dawn.
mean, I don't have the exact specifics, but these, again, the big parties, NDP, Liberal, even Green Party, they, but they have their events, and they can get their candidates on just by having a rally, holding an event,
Yeah.
and everyone signs up. I mean,
The signatures
I got my two
process,
friends here, and I spend 2-3 weekends, sometimes in the rain, standing outside of, the liquor store, or Save On. I was at Save On Foods in New Westminster the 2 elections ago. They called the cops on us.
I was at the Save On in Walnut Grove, and the store manager comes to me and says, I'm not allowed to be there. Now, I could show him the document that says I am.
Which I did.
And I thought, no, I'm actually a libertarian, and this is their property, and I'm going to respect his wishes. So I did that instead. But I knew my rights, and I chose not to argue.
So
them.
that might be that might be a difference. I mean, and that's fine. I mean, and
Yeah.
it kind of goes back a little bit back to our debate earlier, which is
Yeah.
we don't all have to be the same. I think
Right.
I
correct,
think I'm
correct.
going to be pragmatic sometimes, and I might arguably even do some things that are maybe unprincipled to make my principles known, because otherwise I can just sit back there and nobody can hear about me.
Yeah,
And the Save On Foods, they called the cops on us, and I had my little slip
Wow.
paper, and I showed it to the manager. The cops came and showed it to them. They were like, "Good job."
oh, okay. done. Jeez.
And it was
Ridiculous.
totally worth it. I mean,
Yeah.
it felt
Oh, just to prove a point. To prove a point.
Yeah.
I know.
like
I
it's
know.
your laws.
It is.
You
It-
voted
it
for these
is.
guys.
And I look at it like that entire process is something that a business should be happy to engage in.
Mhm.
Like, oh my gosh, like we have like people coming here with democracy. Like that's gonna be a good vibe, right?
Mhm.
It's gonna give your customers a good vibe.
I mean, the big parties, they'll take they'll just hold like a leader or a
A meeting.
candidate.
Yeah, well, that's what you just said.
yeah,
That's what Mirage
exactly.
just said.
Yeah.
So it's easy. They're done in a day.
Well, that's how they got all their
Right.
candidates on the ticket for the pandemic election. I mean, we had to go through what we had, 2 weeks? Was it 3? It was pretty short.
It was short.
It was really short,
Not
right?
a month. It was
Yeah.
not even a month.
It was 2 weeks to get on the ballot.
Yeah, I mean,
And
we
that
were-
one I got on. The federal one is the one where I got COVID. I got sick.
Oh.
Trudeau calls the election, and my quarantine ends. So technically, I'm allowed to leave the house, but I still had no energy. So, like, after working a full day with no energy because you're getting over something, do you really want to go stand in the rain in front of a IGA?
Mhm.
I just couldn't do it.
Yeah.
And so I chose not to run because I was like, I didn't have that extra bit of energy that I had to give.
No, that's
And-
tough.
but
That's tough.
IGA has been great for me. The one in Murrayville and Langley near my house.
Mhm.
Craziest thing
It gets that one's a success place for me.
for me. So one, to get Eli on the ballot, it took us the very last day.
You did liquor store, didn't you?
Liquor store.
Yeah.
Nobody's pissed off walking into a
Liquor stores
store.
are amazing.
Never pissed off. They will sign
But I've never
anything.
done
Even
that.
the pub.
Yes, they will sign anything.
Oh.
No, their strategy. They walk out, they're a little bit happy, It's like,
Well,
hey,
they're happy going into the
yeah,
liquor
they're
store,
happy
right?
going in.
I just was telling them, hey,
Never thought of the pub though.
pub's
we're
amazing.
running to try to, and it ended up being perfect because at the time, Thronis was still a liberal candidate. He had his sign right there. I'm like, hey, I'm helping a friend. We're trying to dethrone this guy out. And people were just coming with their bottle of wine or their beer, and they're like, sure,
Yeah,
why not?
yeah,
And they just signed. And
Yeah.
I was nervous to get Eli on there because I didn't know if we would do it. And that last day, me and one of the helpers, we got like 26 or 30 fucking signatures that night.
Yeah.
Like filled the pages.
Yeah.
And I was just like, man, all I'm gonna do is hang out at liquor stores.
Yeah,
That's it.
That's right.
That's
That's
where
your
you
thing.
go.
yeah.
So my first ever election I ran was in Surrey Federal, and I was down to the wire within days of the deadline. And Paul Geddes, this is going back, like he was still like the guy here in
Yeah.
mainland.
Yeah.
And he says, how close are you? I'm like, oh, I'm like 30, 40, 50 off. Like I'm not even halfway there. He's like, all right, where are you? Okay, Surrey Safeway. Yeah, we're gonna meet you there. And we met there it was black, so it was late at night, and him and Louis Dalby came out, and they stuck with me till I got enough signatures.
Wow. That's dedication.
Well,
Those two, and like it's not their neighborhood, they're from the Coquitlam area. So they came out to Surrey in the dark to help me get on my ballot. And that set me up for wanting to do it again and again and again. And made me always think that it's not over till the fat lady sings, right?
Well, Clayton,
Like
I mean, my first time running in 2017, Clayton, I mean, he's in North Van, right? Or he came out to Burnaby because that's where I was running. And we were standing outside the liquor store, and he showed me the ropes. It was my first time. I'd never done this before, and I got a huge whack of signatures right there.
Good for you.
Yeah.
Oh, I think that's the one thing that does it is we don't have the infrastructure where we can host one meeting.
One meeting is done,
and get every candidate on the books.
Yeah.
But what we can do is we can all rally together, show up at 8 o'clock at night, and get people on the ballot. Like I had Liam helping me.
I don't know him.
Yeah, he was a party member during the election. I don't know if he's renewed. I should reach out to him and check. But he came out. He was nervous. He's like, I don't know what to do. I'm like, honestly, man, all we're doing is just asking for their signature.
Yeah,
this is the spiel that we're going to use.
Signature.
I might even suggest, I don't know when the next provincial election is going to happen, but I'd almost suggest the next time we know one's coming up, and hopefully we don't only have 2 or 3 weeks to do it in, we should try to maybe have like a strategy, at least let's just say Lower Mainland, where maybe we can get, 3-4 people and just kind of be like, hey, look, we're all in Burnaby.
So
get all the Burnaby
people
together.
This was talked about.
Because it's going to take the pain off.
And so the thinking was, is if you get people that have bordering electoral areas and you go to a mall, well, anyone who goes to the mall might not live in your riding.
Right.
But they probably live in the next one or the next one or
That's
the
true.
next one.
That's
and if you have a sheet for each one of them, you're getting 4 sets of signatures at a time. And that is an incredible amount of work to do, but it could pay off. So again, this was a new idea somebody had at the last election. So this was that was a good, and I haven't done that, but that was a good idea.
We have the strategy committee, the campaign strategy committee that Keith chairs. And sort of the idea, and I think that the idea is that we're going to send somebody in to battle Falcon, right? There's some people in our party that view it half full, that we have a true chance here. He's in a pretty tough riding for us, right? Like they picked this riding because it's pretty much a shoe-in for the Liberals.
Of course.
But how I view it is this is the perfect time for us to get the method that we're going to use for the general set, right? We can train the people that we want to have as campaign managers. We can train the people that we think are going to be good financial agents. Because I'll be honest, I was my campaign manager, I was my financial agent, and I was the candidate, and I sucked at all 3. Right? So you give me one of those.
What about holding like a town hall meeting, like in ridings, just to educate people in those ridings?
I tried. I held election was it? I think it was when I ran for mayor. I did that, and I had one where I had 2 friends come out, and then another one where nobody came out.
So that was the turnout for your town hall?
Yeah. Like one where like they knew about it. They're like, well, we were going to go out anyway, so we thought we'd stop by and chat. And it was like ask the candidate. That's how I sold it. Like, here, come, I'm going to be here. Come ask me anything. Have a drink with me.
AMA, ask me anything.
Yeah. And the first one was a couple of
friends. Can we hand out free food? Is there any laws against that?
There are laws, and I don't know what they are.
Sorry?
Jugnet does pancakes.
There's got to be some rules.
So,
well, the one that I remember,
there's always the rule that I live by. It's only illegal if you get caught.
Right. Paul Geddes said that's why they started the West Coast Libertarian Foundation, is because a political party is not allowed to do anything illegal. And this is when they were trying to get marijuana legalized. So they would be giving out pot brownies to get things like signatures. And they're like, well, the BC Libertarian Party can't do that, but the West Coast Libertarian Foundation can.
Is that just someone that happens to be standing right next?
They're all the exact same people.
Oh,
Very-
I'm wearing that hat.
yeah, that's all it was.
So,
Yeah, I mean, legal, as long as it's legal, it's
Yeah.
not bribery.
I'm surprised that didn't garner more votes.
Right, exactly. And no, Paul once ran for the marijuana party. I know he
Okay.
did that at least once.
Mhm.
And I don't know if that's because it was a favor to Mark Emery or if it was just like he thought that was his best bet at getting votes at the time. But like that, like everyone's got an issue, and Paul's a pretty good libertarian.
Mhm.
He's almost like principled to a fault.
so
Yep.
that
But,
sort of leads me into something that Mirage mentioned earlier, Free State Project. So one of the things I think is awesome about them is whatever the issue is, they'll just in mass support that one. So legalization of weed is more likely going to be a Democrat that got it. So what did the Free Staters do? Supported the Democrat,
Right.
got their weed laws passed.
Yeah.
Oh, they want constitutional carry gun laws. Who do they back?
They find the
They
Republican.
find the Republican that's all about constitutional carry gun laws. And in mass, they vote that way.
Did they have
Oh.
open carry?
They have open
open
carry.
carry.
No restrictions on bump stocks, no restrictions on,
It's a pretty amazing state.
yeah. And like, they had a libertarian guy ran on changing the constitution to outlaw speed cameras.
I was gonna actually add to
You
that.
said that, yeah,
I got some
thought you
other
said-
notes
What did
here.
you said that already?
What was it? Yeah, they also legalized, because apparently it's illegal in some states to photograph the police doing things. They legalized that.
Yeah, put it in writing. It's
They
allowed.
affirmed the right
So
to
it's
film
not
the
gray
police.
area.
Apparently it's that way here too now because
Yep.
of the Robert Jacansky.
Oh, the thing in the airport, yeah, so-
Really?
So it's illegal?
We can't,
They put it.
wow.
They made
Yeah,
it
yeah.
illegal.
I think so, yeah.
Holy shit!
I think so. I've heard.
Yeah, that's crazy.
No, I think that the libertarians in New Hampshire are being very pragmatic. It's like what you're saying, they're doing what's necessary to enact the change that they want.
Well,
And they're mostly Republicans, some Democrats, but they're not Libertarian Party members.
yeah,
It's not
Free Staters are everything, right? Most
Yeah,
of the Free Staters are part of the
the
libertarian.
duopoly.
No, they'll vote for whoever's gonna get
Yeah.
their ideas, but a lot of the members are part of the libertarian.
Oh, the
Yeah, the
Libertarian.
United,
Oh,
the
okay.
Federal
New Ham-
Libertarian Party.
Yeah, the New
Oh,
Hampshire
okay.
Libertarian.
Oh, their state chapter. of it,
Yeah, I mean, they eventually, my understanding is they were all over the US, and in fact, they've
okay.
even said, I don't know how it works, but I was reading about it, they're like, you don't have to be a citizen, you can, I mean, there's obviously immigration issues, but they had this thing where you sign a pledge, I don't know how binding that is, 20,000 people signed it, statement of intent. 5,000 of them as of last year are actually in New Hampshire.
So like Pete Buttigieg wants to put traffic cams and speed cams all over the US. Well, he can't put it in New Hampshire because it's in the Constitution
Constitution,
that
they
it's
can't
not
do it.
allowed.
Right, and it's the states, the
yeah.
state has a lot to say.
Yeah, so that's fucking
We
beautiful.
also have like night carry laws as well. Like
Yeah.
it's the same situation. Yeah.
Yeah, so.
By the way,
That's
Andrew, you
brutal.
might want to move forward a bit, you're half in frame.
Oh, yeah.
I just
Fine.
noticed.
That's fine. So yeah, like that kind of thing. I'm not for, I don't necessarily think that the Free Staters are pragmatic, right? I think that they have their principles and they stick to them,
Mhm.
but they understand that my principle is marijuana, legalization and free market marijuana.
Mhm.
How do I get that? Oh, I might have to vote Libertarian. I might have to vote Democrat. I might have to vote Republican. Like for them, it's the end goal is a libertarian
So,
society.
some hardliners
What-
might say that's, voting Democrat or Republican is unprincipled or,
But I don't know how it would be unprincipled, right? Because if you're sticking to your principles,
Mhm.
right?
Well,
You're not changing. Like to me, being pragmatic is I'm willing to, and maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm just viewing it as a Free State fan who would be, if I was ever able to vote in the US, would be a Libertarian Party member,
Mhm.
probably Misty's Caucus Libertarian Party member, but they've just found the ways to get libertarian ideas and actual practical libertarian ideas, like no helmet laws, no seatbelt laws.
Yeah.
Right. Like,
Victimless.
Well, Right.
You know,
No, they have the highest wage earners in there. So like they don't have a federal minimum wage or a state minimum wage. They're hiring cashiers at $16 an hour. Because that's what the market's demanding.
which is great.
Yeah.
16 bucks, that's
Yeah.
great. That's a good
It's
reason to
great,
do it.
like, it's not because we're forced. It's not like
No.
San Francisco that's forcing you to
They,
pay these people
Yeah.
$20 an hour or whatever. And then what do? They cut half the jobs and just go to bus service only.
But we all know what minimum
Right.
wage and
Yeah.
how, I mean, it's,
So they don't have one, but there's
they're still paying them an above market
Yeah.
wage.
well, they're
but
Yeah,
for
the
the,
market
but
wage,
for the right
like,
reasons.
yeah,
For the right
But
reasons.
right, because that, well, and I talk about it in my industry is so bad, how like we have so much trouble hiring people. Well, it's because you're not paying them enough based on where we live. But they can't pay them more because of the collective bargaining agreement. And like, there's also like, it's brutal.
Well, it's a minimum wage, and unions ultimately all they're doing is they're making it illegal to hire lower, how do I put this in a nice way?
Lower skilled people.
Lower skilled people.
No, there's no.
They're just making it illegal to hire.
So I would love to go to the local middle school and hire a bunch of 12-year-olds for $10 an hour.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh my gosh, you have mad skills. I'm going to pay you $15 next week
Yeah.
because you've proven yourself you can do the job. And like, holy shit, you're still here working for me at 16. I'll pay you $20 an hour because I don't want the turnover. I don't want to have to retrain someone.
Mhm.
So, but you pay someone what they're worth.
Right, exactly.
But no, what I more mean is that these minimum wage laws are brutal because now it handcuffs the unions because now they've had these. Sorry, best example, our labor relations guy. He's like, well, they negotiated a minimum wage plus scale so that when you move up in hours of seniority, you are now making minimum wage, whatever that is, plus 30 cents, plus 50 cents.
How about PC's training wage when they did that years ago?
Oh yeah, there's still stuff like that.
Yeah.
But so what they did is they said, okay, well, this is great. And then minimum wage jumped twice in a year. They're like, never mind, scrapped it. They renegotiated with the union. The union agreed. They're like, no, we're going back to like a fixed scale. And I said, Roger, what gives?
Mhm.
But that was a really good idea. It was a really good way for people never to not get the raise they deserve based on experience, based on the time they put in,
Mhm.
which isn't that the whole effing point of the union. And he says, well, we made that move based on that the Liberal government only saying they were probably not going to raise the minimum wage. And then they raised it 6 months later. And now with an NDP government, who knows? And he was right.
Yep.
He was right. Because then they've already raised it 4 times since.
Going up again in June.
Right. So that's the point. It only hurts the employees because now those employees aren't going to get a raise for like 4 years more than a nickel.
Well, that's the paradox that I think the majority
There you go.
of the labor force and these non-aware people have. It is a paradox because
Non-aware. That's a
you know
new term,
we
by
come
the
out
way.
there and we, you know, as libertarians, we tell them that minimum wage hurts these people and they think we're completely full of it. That's what a paradox is. You have to go and listen to that and think that this absurd statement that Alex or Neeraj made or Andrew made, it's actually very true. You just got to think
Yeah.
about it.
Yeah.
Libertarian
You're-
deniers.
Well, no, I got hissed at a all candidates meeting. They said they were asked. It was put on by the Chamber of Commerce, right? So
Mhm.
business stuff, right? And they said, "Do you support a raise in the minimum wage?" I said, "I support no minimum wage," and I got hissed at by
Yeah.
people in the crowd. I'm like, man, I just like I'm not sorry, but when
Yeah.
it comes down to it, I do not want to exclude anyone from the labor force.
Of course.
Number one, and number two, I don't want there to be an arbitrary line where business now can fixate someone to and say, look, I'm doing my part. When in reality, they should be here.
Well, yeah,
Or
and
here.
actually, it actually
Or
goes both
here.
ways, right? Yeah,
It does.
it does go both ways. That's true. Very true.
Now they're like, hey, I'm paying.
Yeah, I'm paying you minimum
I'm
wage.
paying you what the government says I have to
Yeah.
pay you.
But you're actually
the
entitled.
reality
You
is-
should be getting more.
Should be getting more. And that's
Yeah.
why we're short staffed
Mhm,
because they're not willing to start at a higher wage.
mhm, mhm.
Want to
So
beer me one more time here?
yeah, we're
We're way over time. And we're way off topic.
That's-
We're having good chats though.
No, it's
so the job I'm on, right? It's twofold that we're having issues getting manpower, right?
Yeah.
The biggest one is the Kiera, the site that I'm on, put in them like vax, mandatory
Rule.
vax, right?
Sure.
Like, so you need to be double shotted to work there. Well, construction workers, for the most part, are probably, I would, talking out of my ass here, but I bet you it's probably around 40%.
I would have guessed 60, but you're
Right.
saying 40. Okay.
Like,
40% of double vaxxed.
yeah.
Mm.
So we need guys. We need to get up to 70 men or 75 guys on site at all times, right? So that's about 40 guys per shift. We'll probably be at 80, so it'll be 40 guys per shift. The only people that are applying right now, because of the mandatory double vax, are people that are greener than green, right?
What
And
is the skill requirement for the job?
electricians, so industrial
These
electricians.
people that are tradesmen, yeah.
Yeah.
So these people are green. They have zero experience in an industrial.
So they're not an apprentice, but
Well,
they have.
some of them might be ticketed, but being a residential electrician is 100% different.
No, yeah, for sure it is.
Being
Yeah.
industrial electrician.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So these people, some people are coming up with either just residential experience or
Yeah.
absolutely no experience at all.
It's brutal.
How are we able to fill that position when we already have our hands are tied behind our backs because there's probably very good tradespeople who didn't get backs just because they wanted. And then it leads to my wife's business. It's the whole thing in retail, right? You're mandatory to pay. Canadian Tire.
Sorry, I don't know. Are we
Yeah.
still on
Yeah.
live?
Yeah.
Okay.
But
I don't know what I should
you
be
pay-
saying. out loud.
they have their minimum wage, right?
Right.
So then so you have somebody that's there 6 years. Somebody brand new comes in and they're getting $16 an hour. Well, this person's been there 6 years and might have just earned their $16 or $17 an
Yeah,
hour.
that boggles my mind.
And then you add to the fact that you had the double vax requirement at some stores. So you're not going to pay a high school kid coming right out of high school $17 an hour. Let's be real, you're not.
Mhm.
One, they don't have the skill set to deserve that
Probably
money.
not.
They don't. It's not probably not. It's definitely not.
It should be negotiable.
It
That's
should
my
be
point.
negotiable.
That's all I'm trying to say.
Yeah, it should be
I'm agreeing with
negotiable.
you, but I'm just, sorry.
And so all that we're doing with these mandates and minimum wage laws and all this is tying people's hands behind their backs, right? We're not achieving anything.
No.
We're not kickstarting our economy so that it's roaring, right? Like all the places that have roaring economies have things in common. No mandates, no minimum wage laws. Like, what is it that these people that are making these laws don't understand? The roaring economies aren't hamstringing employers.
Here's a question I'm going to ask out loud to the two of you, and you guys can, if you guys maybe know more. I would like to know what the comparison is, or what the similarity, the statistical connection between minimum wages and what people are making, and how many people are making it. Like, when the higher you go in minimum wage, are more people just making the minimum wage?
Oh.
And I would no, and I only say it because I'm thinking about my company,
Mhm.
how many people are making minimum wage, and then their first raise after 600 hours or whatever, it's 5 cents an hour, and their next raise another 1,000 hours later, 10 cents an hour, when inflation of course is making that worth less every single month. But so I would be very interested to know, not only is it not keeping up with the cost of living, but like, are people artificially paying down to the minimum wage? It's not that, like, I don't know, because you still don't see jobs lost because they were never found, they were never hired. You won't see that. That's a thing that is really hard to track. But I'm interested in is places that jack up their minimum wage, how often people just don't make more than that.
I think
I don't know.
I think
You hear what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like,
I think I don't necessarily think anybody in this room has those numbers available, but I
No,
think you could find
no.
them. But
you
I
so, huh?
think what your question is, and maybe I'm changing it a little bit,
Maybe.
is
Go.
you have one jurisdiction where they don't have a minimum wage.
Right,
Let's just
or
say
it's really low.
it's really low,
really,
or,
really
or
low.
it's really low, or there's no minimum wage. They're almost the
Right.
same thing.
Right.
And having some sort of statistics about what are people in different industries making, right? And
Yes,
that's region A, jurisdiction A.
got it.
Then you got jurisdiction B as in Bravo, second one where they do have a high minimum wage, like San Francisco.
Yeah.
And
Minimum
have the
wage.
same statistics across the different verticals, right? The different industries.
Yeah.
Now you can compare. Now
Now
let's
you can compare.
now of course we have to compare apples with apples. Let's hope that it's contrived, but let's say these two regions were relatively similar in terms of demographics,
Yeah,
types of industries. And now you go like, okay, how much is someone in fast food making in the first place versus the second place? What about in software? What about in
yeah.
teaching or
That's what
whatever,
you,
right?
this is what you would have
And
to
then you
do.
compare it,
This
and
is
it
what
would
I'm
be
asking.
interesting
This
because
is what I'm asking.
yeah, it might be interesting because I mean, the ideal conclusion for us would be that wait a minute, people in the first region
Where
doing
there's
better
a
than in the
lower
second
minimum
one.
wage
Yeah, they're actually doing
are
better.
making a higher wage.
Yeah, across the board.
And I think we'd see that, but I have nothing.
I
to back
don't
that.
have I
Yeah,
don't have it
know.
either. So I don't want to
I
come and
think
say
minimum
that's
wage
true.
is relevant right now because there was, because of the pandemic, there was a mass resignation that happened
Yeah,
because of people just hating their job.
yeah.
So
They're like, serve for me.
yeah,
Well, down in the US, apparently the problem they're having is
Yeah,
they're not coming back.
the problem they're having down there is there's apparently, I don't have the figures in front of me, but I read this a couple of weeks ago. They literally have a measurable reduction in the amount of the labor force available.
okay.
And one of the reasons they said that's true is there's people that are still recovering from COVID, or at least they claim
Oh.
to be.
Oh.
They're not
Okay.
medically fit to do the jobs they were
And that's
doing. before.
possible. I had one employee who was off for almost a year.
Mhm.
He got it, was unconscious, had the ventilator, all that
yeah.
thing. And it's like, I'll speak to that it is not a big deal
Mhm.
until you're like a late 50s guy who's
Yeah.
unconscious in
Yeah.
the ICU. So he's back at work now, but he was off for almost a year.
Yeah.
So this is, and that's other than my father who passed away from it, he's the only person that I know who actually had like a really bad case
Mhm.
where,
Mhm.
like you said, it affected his work performance,
Right.
his ability to work.
Right.
Now, for every one of those people, there's someone milking the system,
Yes. Yes.
or 4 people milking the
Yes,
system.
of course. There's no doubt.
And that's why we paid out something like a million kids. No, or what was the stat Michael Campbell gave? Was 1 million people collected CERB that were 18 or under? Like, are you like CERB? The whole idea was shit. You can't live without this money, and we're not letting you work. Here, have the money.
Mhm.
It's like, wait, you live at home? No, we're not. We shouldn't be giving you the money.
Wasn't CERB also, if I'm not mistaken, was it also given out to people that weren't citizens?
Everyone. No, it was given out to everyone who applied.
Yeah.
Like without
I mean,
discrimination.
you could just be visiting Canada.
You could just have an ID that you uploaded to whatever you had to do to upload. And then they said, oh, well, if you shouldn't have got it in the first place, we're going to make you pay it back. Well, if you're not a citizen, good luck trying
Good
to
luck
get that back from
collecting
me.
that. Good luck collecting that, right? Yeah.
So the only people they're going to get it back from are people that have followed every other rule all the time.
Right, exactly. The
Right.
guys who follow the rules are the ones that get,
Think twice.
yeah.
So, but no, that's what it was all about. It's
Mhm.
I wonder how many baby boomers retired just went, screw it, I'm a retirement age."
Sure. That's actually something I haven't even thought of, to be honest with
That's a
you.
very good point, actually. And
I've
you know,
not even thought of that.
that's a very good point. And that actually could explain why the labor force has contracted. Is
Well,
there's people that were on the fence about retiring.
Well, they've got that in the healthcare industry. We
Yeah,
know that.
yeah.
They said, they were like, I don't need this bullshit.
Yeah, I'm just gonna leave. I mean, I'm
Yeah.
63 or
Like I was a year away.
Yeah, I was a
I'm
weird
fucking
way,
done.
whatever.
I'm done.
Done. I'm not going through this.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And it's like Tim Mull pointed it out, of course, as a paramedic. He says we're not leaving because we're afraid of the COVID. We're leaving because of the rules are so stringent.
Mhm.
And if you come in and like your like head gown isn't on perfect, you get yelled at by the managing
Mhm.
person.
Mhm.
They're like,
Yeah.
he's like, who wants that? And if you're in a position to not go through that,
Yeah.
you quit and you don't go through it. Some people have no choice.
Some
Like
people
your
were-
mortgage depends on it.
Yeah.
But for others who have that choice, like I was close to retirement
Well, yeah, you
anyway.
have that luxury
Well,
to walk
isn't it-
away.
Fuck it.
Just sort
I'm
of
done.
the whole CERB though.
And
little bit off topic.
oh, do it.
Isn't it a little
We're
bit on
already off topic.
the hypocritical side for them to give out CERB because people need to pay their bills, need to pay mortgages, what they said, and then they go and they start freezing people's bank accounts for
Yeah.
$25 for a,
Yes. Yeah.
the freedom
Yeah.
convoy. Like,
Yeah.
are you fucking kidding me? Like,
Yeah. Yes.
They didn't just freeze bank accounts. They doxed everybody on that list.
Yeah, that's so weird to me. I still don't understand how that went down. But yeah, it's, I saw.
somebody
got the-
hacked.
I got the
Gibson.
list
Oh.
in my Facebook feed. It showed up.
Yeah, that's so weird to me.
Hmm.
Like it was either done on purpose and that
Yeah.
somebody should be criminally charged.
Yeah.
Or it was a terrible security issue and
Well, I think
somebody
it
should
was-
be reprimanded.
I think it was a terrible security issue.
So
and
that
hackers-
somebody should be reprimanded. and-
hackers got into it and then they just decided
brutal.
to.
Well, it's like Vanessa said, she was about to buy a shirt. She's like, I'm glad I didn't buy a shirt.
Yeah.
I know, it's that's a whole different conversation. Now, but man, that what a ride that was. And now it's, and who knows, maybe it starts up again. But they're,
And then instituting the Emergency Act. That was
yeah, well, no,
unnecessary.
oh no, we know that, and every libertarian's against that. The thing that surprised me was how quick he called off the dogs, even after he got the House of Commons to support him on
Well,
it.
do you
The
think?
Senate
Well, they hadn't had a chance yet.
Really?
No, like it was about to go to the Senate.
Well, it had gone to the Senate and they were about to vote on it.
They were debating it still.
Yeah.
They were still, no, it was gonna be a few days.
Was it? Okay.
But the point is he pulled back. I was like, that shocked me. I thought he was gonna go all the way with
So,
that one.
There's-
Take away all the rights from
Well,
everybody.
Maybe
So-
that strongly worded letter to Jagmeet Singh that I sent him was good.
There you go.
That's what did
There
it.
you go.
Well, no, what I think.
That
what
must
I
have been
think
it.
Was, what I think it was he did this to bury the NDP,
Oh, okay.
right?
To
Like,
say, do what I say,
well,
and either you're going against the science or you were a nothing burger and you're just
No.
doing what I say.
well, so what I think it
Okay,
was
sorry.
personally was that the NDP backed the Liberals, right? So they went from the civil liberty, a party that defended civil liberties,
The
like
Workers' Party.
Tommy Douglas was up there when Daddy Trudeau put the War Measures Act being like, this is a bad idea, like this is not what the NDP stands for, to like on Twitter, granted it's Twitter and it is what it is, but the amount of NDP people that I saw basically turning on the party, I think was Trudeau's goal.
You think so?
I think so.
You think there were people turning on the NDP?
Yeah.
I don't know. I think people have a love affair with
Oh,
it.
yeah, I don't know about
Sick.
that. I mean, I've met some of these NDPers. They're pretty. They got some
religious.
pretty blind
It's
love to it.
culty.
It's almost
True.
like a cult.
True, but like
I have a
think-
whole
I think
discussion to have off camera about that.
well, but the ones that I know anyways are
Shocked.
yeah, but like where we agree
Oh, okay.
is like things on like
Workers' rights.
well, police brutality and stuff
Yeah.
like that, right?
Yeah, human rights.
And when this happens and you're basically giving carte blanche to the police to do whatever they want, whether or not you agree with the freedom protests or not, you're basically giving the cops
Yeah.
carte blanche. That pissed off a lot of the NDP supporters that I have on my feed. And
Gotcha.
I think that was Trudeau's plan, was to basically try to turn the NDP irrelevant. Because you lose the
No,
NDP,
I see your
you
point.
move,
Yeah.
you get, those NDP supporters are not gonna go conservative.
No.
They'll go,
Right,
they
right.
will go liberal.
Right, because the Liberals
Or
are in
green,
between. They're
or
sitting there.
green.
They're the next stop, basically.
But they will not
So we've had-
go NDP.
Yeah,
again.
we've
They-
had-
they-
We've had two
or they
minority
will,
parliaments
like you
in a
That's
row.
an interesting
Right?
theory for sure.
Yeah.
So you bury one, Jagmeet's a pretty ineffective leader.
Agreed. Well, he does what he does well. He gets that cult following.
Yeah.
He
yeah,
says
does.
he says
they've-
big
they've-
lines
they've
that are
lost-
unsubstantiated.
But
That's his
I
problem.
agree. I don't think he's a very effective.
They-
leader.
I told
Well,
him, if you do this, this is going to be, this isn't just a bad thing. This is evil. And history will remember you and it won't be kind. That's the
Yeah, it
exact
won't be
words I
kind.
used.
And
You know?
is he your MP?
Yep.
Yeah.
Jagmeet's your MP.
Yeah.
Wow.
I know I sent a letter to my MLA and my MP. So my MP is a conservative And he was one of the first who said like, oh, I'm here in Ottawa hanging out with the protesters. I'm like, where have you been the last year and a half, you asshole?
Mm.
But anyway, my MLA is a brand new orange, and it's like, as you know, Langley's a pretty conservative riding.
Brand new orange. Really.
So to get an NDP elected, that's a big deal. So I sent a letter, and she actually responded to me, and of course it was all a bunch of diplomatic bullshit. But she's like, yeah, no, I understand that
Did she
the mandates
respond?
that she did. She's like,
Or
I
did her
understand that
staffer
Oh, well, that's an
Right.
interesting question too.
that's fair enough. So the
Conservative,
mandates have had a negative effect on a lot of people, but this, that, and the other. I'm like, ugh.
conservatives asked me to run.
Yeah,
They did. Yeah.
in your riding.
Yeah, I'm voted conservative.
Why didn't you?
federally
Just
for
curious.
quite a while.
Why did you not?
I'm not interested in politics
Oh,
for the most part.
it sounds like you were.
Yeah.
You're asking questions that indicate you're pretty interested.
Yeah. Well, I'm not, let me put it this way. I'm not interested in being a politician.
No, nor am I. Oh, that would be my worst nightmare. To actually, like I said to Vanessa, I said something like, I don't really understand a lot of the parliamentary shit. She's like, you keep running for office. You should know the rules. I'm like, I'll cross that bridge when I get there.
Yeah. I'd love to have
That's
to
a
do that
problem.
homework.
That's a problem
Yeah.
I'd like to
Yeah, I'd
have.
love to have that problem. Gee, I gotta actually know how to do this job now. Oh no, I got elected.
So she called me out on that one, and all I have is meh.
So we only got one viewer left. We might as
Is
well.
that
Yeah,
shut her
I
down.
think we can call it.
I think it's somebody's mom, maybe.
But,
I don't know.
Yeah.
We had Paul Matthews tune in from Virginia though.
All
Yeah,
right.
that's a good one. Yeah, he's a good contrarian on a lot of things. Good
Yeah.
Mises caucus kind of guy.
He definitely is.
Out in Virginia now, huh?
Yeah, and then his plans to move to Texas in 6 months.
That's what I was wondering. I thought he was headed for Texas.
No, but like that was his job.
Yeah.
Like, that they said Virginia first, and that's where